Hey everyone, I'm Iris T-Main. Yesterday was my 18th birthday, and I need to tell you what really happened. At my party, music playing, lights twinkling, my dad leaned close so nobody else could hear and whispered, "When this winds down, you'll sign some papers for Uncle Wade." Just routine stuff. I nodded like everything was fine. But while they cut the cake, I slipped into the kitchen, opened my laptop, and quietly transferred my entire inheritance, the money, property, investments, into a permanent legal trust. A fortress they couldn't reach. Before I tell you how that unfolded, hit like and subscribe, and drop your city in the comments. I love seeing where my listeners live. Now, let me take you back 6 years, to a summer that started all of it. Grandpa Harold picked me up in his old truck when I was 12. We drove out to Cedar Lake, windows down, the smell of pine so strong it almost stung. His cabin stood back from the water, half hiding behind tall trees. The porch tilted, screen door never latched quite right, the air inside thick with wood smoke and old paper. We spent the morning replacing fence posts. Grandpa showed me how to check the grain of the wood with a thumb. "If it caves, it's done," he said calmly. When we finished, Grandma Vivian had iced tea and sandwiches waiting on the hand-built kitchen table. We ate in silence, windows open, lake breeze humming through the screens. That evening on the porch, Grandpa said, "This place stays in the family. But family doesn't always mean blood. It's whoever shows up." I thought he was being poetic. I didn't realize he was warning me. Back home, everything looked perfect but felt plastic. 3 bedrooms, nice yard, a father lost in business, a mother smoothing every rough patch with a practiced smile, and my little sister Kelsey shining as the family favorite. At dinner one night my dad said, "We should unload the cabin. Taxes are eating us alive." I said softly, "Grandpa wanted it to stay." He laughed, polite but sharp. "You were 12, Iris. Don't take old talk too seriously." Later, clearing dishes, I noticed a real estate flyer on the counter, Ridgeline Development, lakefront lots wanted, and a phone number scribbled beside it. Somebody had already picked out a price tag for my grandparents' memories. I put it back where I found it and kept my mouth shut. 2 years later we buried Grandpa. I sat second row, gripping his handkerchief, pretending the smell of pine didn't break me. At the reception I saw my father and Uncle Wade whispering by the dessert table. Wade's briefcase looked heavier than the pastries. I heard him say, "We should move before probate gets tricky." They were planning the sale before the funeral flowers wilted. When Grandma died 2 years after that, her last words to me were, "The cabin is yours. Promise you'll keep it." I promised. The same week she was in the ground, Dad told Mom, "Now we can finally sort out the property," and she actually looked relieved. In the garage that night I overheard him telling Wade, "Let's get it moving." That was when I understood. Grief for them wasn't a loss, it was an opening. From 16 to 18 I turned quiet rebellion into routine. Every Saturday morning I drove my beat-up Honda to Cedar Lake, patched screens, cleared pine needles, sealed cracks, just small repairs, but it was mine. The cabin turned into my heartbeat. At home, though, conversations changed. It wasn't Grandpa's place anymore, it became the family property. Wade started visiting with spreadsheets and words like liquidate. One afternoon, cleaning the hall closet, I found an envelope hidden behind old quilts. My name, Grandma's handwriting. Inside, one business card. Margaret Caldwell, attorney at law, T-Main Family Trust. Grandma had prepared for the storm years earlier. 3 months before my 18th birthday, that attorney called me. She told me straight. My grandparents had already moved everything, the cabin, savings, investments, into an irrevocable trust under my name. The total value was about $2 million. The title to the cabin had been recorded long before Grandpa died. Then she said something that stuck like a nail. "Your grandfather told me, my boys will sell that cabin before the funeral flowers wilt." In the months after that call, the pressure at home grew steady and suffocating. Dad organized a giant birthday party. Mom tried gentle persuasion, "Your father's business is dying. Selling the cabin would help everyone." Uncle Wade caught me in the driveway with his realtor smile and promised, 50,000 cash for you. Easy college money. I asked, whose name is on the deed, Uncle Wade? His eyes flickered for a single heartbeat, then that salesman grin snapped back. I told them all I'd think about it. Then I texted Margaret, they're accelerating. She answered instantly, stay the course. The night before my birthday, I drove to the cabin alone. The lake lay perfectly still under moonlight, the air smelled like rain and pine. Margaret had emailed me all the legal forms, each page tagged for signatures. At midnight, she appeared on a video call. You're officially an adult now, she said. Together we walked through everything. I signed the acceptance of successor beneficiary form. From that moment on, every decision about the trust went through me and Margaret together. She would file a lien pendens first thing in the morning, a legal freeze on any transfer. I stared at my name beside my grandparents' printed ones and realized what their real gift was, safety. The next day, my 18th birthday party filled our living room. Streamers, sheet cake, neighbors pretending everything was perfect. Dad raised a glass and announced proudly, our family has decided to sell the cabin to secure our future. Iris agrees it's for the best. Every head turned to me. I said calmly, I never agreed. He tried to laugh. Uncle Wade hissed, this isn't the time. I smiled. You're right. The time was 8 a.m. this morning. Nobody understood, not yet, that Margaret had just locked the title. When the guests left, the smiling masks came off. Dad told me, if you fight this, you're on your own, no college, no roof. I said quietly, I'm fighting for Grandma's promise. I went upstairs, closed my door, and waited for daylight. At the county recorder's office that morning, Margaret was the first one in. She handed her folder to the clerk. Within minutes, the new public record stamped the property under the T-Main Family Irrevocable Trust. An hour later, my father and uncle swaggered in with their forged quitclaim deed. The clerk typed the parcel number, frowned, and said, this can't be recorded. Ownership is held by the trust. Wade blinked. That's impossible. The clerk recited, deed transferred 6 years ago. There's also a legal notice filed this morning. And then, slowly, Wade looked toward the waiting benches, where Margaret sat, calm as a stone, legs crossed, watching the truth land. Minutes later my phone rang. Dad's voice was tight enough to snap. What did you do? I just accepted what Grandma and Grandpa left to me, I said. They were my parents. They trusted me because they knew you'd sell the memory with the land. He hung up. Just silence. That same afternoon I got a call from a developer, Carter Briggs from Ridgeline Development. He said they'd already signed a $500,000 purchase deal with my uncle, who'd promised clean title. I told him, my uncle never owned that property. The cabin's held by an irrevocable trust, and I'm the beneficiary. He asked if I was open to selling. I said, not for any price. He sighed, corporate and cold. Then we'll be pursuing action against Mr. T-Main. And they did, within days. Breach of contract, misrepresentation, damages. Another domino down. Margaret later found out the notary seal on their quitclaim was forged, crime level forged. Wade's real estate license got suspended. Greg's business collapsed under debt. Mom started back at work quietly, pretending it was her idea. Weeks passed. Then one clear morning I drove to Cedar Lake, unlocked the front door, and let the familiar scent wash over me. The place was still sturdy. The table Grandpa built still steady. On the desk sat an envelope with my name written in his shaky blue ink. He wrote that he loved his sons but knew they didn't understand the difference between something that had value and something that was valuable. He'd chosen me because I fixed the fence before I ever asked what the land was worth. His last line said, take care of it. It took care of you first. Margaret called soon after. The lawsuits were closing, the trust unmatched, the title completely clear. She also mentioned another account my grandparents had quietly created, a college fund, $50,000 plus interest, now almost 60. The same number Wade had offered me as a bribe. My grandparents had planned even that detail, just without the cruelty. I cried, not the messy kind, the relieved, exhausted kind that leaves no noise behind it. I registered for community college, environmental science, forestry minor. The campus was 20 minutes from the cabin. On the registration form, under current address, I wrote the cabin's location. For the first time in my life, I listed a place that truly belonged to me. Later I met Mom and Dad at a coffee shop, neutral ground, warm air between us. I love you both, I began. But the cabin isn't for sale, now or ever. If we're going to have a relationship, it has to be built on respect, not money. Dad stared into his mug. Mom's fingers trembled on the handle of her purse. I left them there with their coffee and a chance to choose honesty if they wanted it. A week later, Kelsey showed up at the cabin with a pizza box and an awkward smile. I brought lunch, she said. Hope you like pepperoni. We ate on the porch. She stared at the lake and whispered, I didn't know what they were doing. Am I part of the problem? I told her, you were a kid. So was I. She nodded and leaned her head on my shoulder. We let the quiet say the rest. Now every morning I drink coffee on the same porch, watching mist lift off the water. I don't feel like I won anything, because you don't win against family. You just survive what you shouldn't have had to fight in the first place. But I kept a promise. My grandparents saw the storm coming before I did. They built the shelter first. They couldn't stop my father from being desperate or my uncle from being greedy, but they made sure I had solid ground to stand on. Here I am, standing on it. If something in my story moved you, share it with someone who needs to feel a little stronger today. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story I tell. And answer this one for me in the comments. If you could protect only one thing, a person, a place, or a promise, what would it be?